Okay, good morning, everybody. Or good morning. It's still good morning. I hope all of you are doing well here. Just give me a minute, guys. Morning. Just give me a minute as I set up my device. Okay, we are already up to 170 people. I am assuming that 100 more people will be joining us in the next few minutes. As always, people are always late. Morning, everybody. Shreya, I'm good here. I hope you are also doing well. So, how is everybody here? I hope all of you are preparing well for your MT. Please do well in it. Okay. Morning, everybody. Okay. Good morning. Thank you very much, Pranav, for your suggestion. I'll see. Okay. Okay. Good morning, Meghna. Good morning, Veda. Yes, Rachna, I have not yet sent yesterday's notes. They'll be uploaded soon. Do not worry. Okay. It's just that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are very busy days. Okay, so Anil, I had a class at 9 here. I took 11th standard at 9 o'clock, 9 to 10:30 that was. So now I have another class that is of you guys. Then I have 3 hours of classes in the evening. Good morning, Kirtan. Yeah, I hope you are doing well. Morning, everybody. Okay. Okay. Good morning. Enjoy Pranav. Okay. Thank you very much. When will you leave me here? Okay. So shall we start? Okay. So I hope that there is no internet problem today. Okay. I have taken care of everything. Yes, Praswal, unfortunately, I do have a very busy schedule. Thank you very much for your kind words. Yes, Anushri, I do know him. Thank you, Chandrika. Okay. Yes, Kirtan, classes for 11th have already started. We have already done 2 chapters also. Okay, so everybody is good to go. No, Anushri, I don't know that person. Chalo, let's not waste any more time then. Let's start with our class, which is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay. So, Ketan, they're also attending classes. Yeah, they're also attending classes. So today is your lecture number 2. Okay. Obviously, in today's lecture, I have to cover some of the topics that I could not cover yesterday. Right. I wanted to finish pollen grains also in yesterday's class, but I could not do that due to the internet problem. But I will be keeping a slightly brisk pace today. Okay, so that we can make up for the time that we lost yesterday. Okay. Pranav, what do you think? Take a guess here. So Sukanya, yeah, for theory, I would say NCERT is more than enough, and some extra things that I mentioned in the notes that would be more than enough. Good morning, Pratish. Okay, chalo. So let's just get into this session then. Let's not waste any more time. So let's do a brief recap. वैसे भी ज़्यादा कल कुछ किया नहीं था. So yesterday we talked about what a flower is, right? And we started with the male part of the flower. That is androecium, right? And we talked about what are the different parts of the male reproductive part. What are the different parts of the male reproductive part? Okay, so we talked about anther, we talked about filament, we cut open an anther, we saw an anther from the inside, and then we also discussed about the process of formation of male gametophyte, right? So which is known as microsporogenesis. There is your pollen mother cell, which is also known as microspore mother cell or microsporocytes, which undergoes meiosis to give rise to your microspore, right, which is your male gamete. Now, how does that get converted to pollen grain? That is something we'll study today. That is what we'll start with today. I also want to finish off the female reproductive part today. Okay, so that is the agenda that I have for today. Arun, tetrad means beta. Tetrad means char. There's a pair is called 2. Tetrad means 4. ठीक है, कल भी बताया था, अभी फिर से बताता हूँ. Pair means 2. Tetrad means 4. Okay. Okay. What about major test? What do you want to know? Okay. So that is what we did today. So today's agenda is finishing of pollen grain and finishing of the entire female reproductive part. Okay. तो करने को बहुत कुछ है, right? So I'll keep a brisk pace. Please pay attention. Again, at any point, if you fail to understand anything, please let me know. Okay. I will help you guys with it. Okay. Sure. So as always, before we start with the class, there is only one revision question today, okay, because we didn't cover a lot yesterday. So only one revision question for today. And the question is, anther is typically tetrasporangiate, bisporangiate, trisporangiate, or monosporangiate. That is what the question is. Okay. I've not yet uploaded the notes, beta. I will upload yesterday's and today's note soon. Okay. Okay. So I hope all of you have read the question. Okay. Anther is typically which one of the following? Anther is typically which one of the following? Okay. So I'll throw up the poll then. Just quickly get your votes in so that we can start with the class. Okay. चलो सिंपल सा क्वेश्चन है यार, कल ध्यान से पढ़ा होगा तो आ जाएगा, right? If you listened to the lecture yesterday, then you should be able to do this. The poll is live on your screen. Please get your votes in. We are at 217 people. I expect 50 to 60 more people, but I am assuming that they are late. Okay, just get your votes in, guys. Okay, we are now up to 221. That's good. Okay, 10 more seconds and I'll close the poll, beta. 62% of you have voted. I want more people to get your votes in. I want more people to get your votes in. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll stop. Okay. Okay. So according to you guys, 82% of you think that A is the correct option. 82% of you think A is the correct option, and 82% of you are correct. If you remember yesterday's class, anther are usually tetrasporangiate. Anthers are usually tetrasporangiate, right? Okay. Okay, and we also talked about examples of anthers which are bisporangiate or monosporangiate. I hope you remember the examples from yesterday's class. Those examples can be asked in the exam. Okay. Okay, so yesterday we figured out how male gametes are made. Now, how do those male gametes get converted into pollen grains? What is the difference between a male gamete and a pollen grain? What is the process? So that is what we'll start our today's class with. Okay. Okay, so let's look at it then, beta. So what are pollen grains? Okay, so pollen grains represent the male gametophyte. Pollen grains represent the male gametophyte. Okay, remember the size. They are generally 25 to 50 micrometers in diameter. They are generally 25 to 50 micrometer in diameter. Yes, Prajwal, there was a question before it. We are done with that question. Okay, and they are high. They have a highly resistant wall on the outside and cellular contents on the inside. So they have a highly resistant wall. Okay, what is that wall made up of? What is that wall called? Why is that wall so resistant? We'll be studying. Okay, so the figure that you see, that is an electron microscope figure of different types of pollen shapes that you can see in the environment around you, right? So as you can see that the pollen grains have different shapes, different sizes. Okay, so a lot of variation can be seen. Okay, so pollen grains represent the male gametophytes. They are usually 25 to 50 micrometers in diameter. Okay, remember it's diameter, not radius. So agar option mein 25 to 50 micrometers diameter aaya, or option mein 25 to 50 micrometers radius aaya, so you know which one to go with. You have to go with 25 to 50 micrometers in diameter. Okay, they have a highly resistant wall on the outside and cellular content on the inside. They have a highly resistant wall on the outside and cellular contents on the inside. Okay. Okay, so let's see. The wall or the covering of pollen grain is called sporoderm. Okay, so the wall of the pollen grain is called what? The wall of the pollen grain is called sporoderm. The wall of the pollen grain is called sporoderm. Okay, and the wall or the sporoderm is made up of two layers. The wall or the sporoderm is made up of two layers. The two layers are outer exine and inner entine. So the sporoderm or the wall of the pollen grain is made up of two layers, outer exine and inner entine. Okay. Okay. What were the four walls that we studied in anther? Yeah? Can anybody tell me quickly what are the four walls that we studied in anther? Yesterday we talked about four walls, right? Okay. What were the four walls that we studied yesterday? So the four walls that we studied yesterday were epidermis, endothecum, middle layer, and tapetum. Okay. So your wall of the pollen grain is called sporoderm, and it contains two layers, exine and intine. Okay, now intine is pectocellulosic in nature. What do we mean by that? Pectocellulosic means it is made up of pectin and cellulose. It is made up of pectin and cellulose, right? So the intine is made up of pectin and cellulose. That is why I have used the term pectocellulosic in nature. Okay, so remember, what does pectocellulosic means? Pectocellulosic means made up of pectin as well as cellulose. Made up of pectin as well as cellulose. Okay. Okay. Exine is made up of highly resistant fatty substance called sporolinin. Okay, so exine is made up of sporolinin, which is highly resistant, and intine is made up of pectin and cellulose. Together, exine and intine give you your pollen grain wall or the sporoderm or the sporoderm. Okay, okay, okay. Now let's move forward then. Okay, so sporopollenin is not degraded by any enzyme. Okay, sporopollenin is not degraded by any enzyme. Okay, so far in the history of mankind, we have not yet discovered any enzyme or any chemical that can degrade sporopollenin. Okay, so it is not affected by high temperature, strong acid, or strong alkali. It is, so usually, okay, usually all your layers that we have seen, all the cell walls, all the plasma membrane that we have seen, they are degradable or they are affected by one thing or the other. But sporopollenin is the only substance that is known to us which we have not been able to degrade. It is not affected by high temperature. It is not affected by strong acid. It is also not affected by any particular base. Okay, that is why, because of sporopollenin, pollen grains are well preserved as microfossils, right? So since they contain such a strong wall on the outside which cannot degrade. Okay, beta, sporopollenin is the substance, okay, is the substance by which the exine is made up of. Okay, that is what sporopollenin is. Okay, sporopollenin is the substance which makes up the exine, okay, the outer strong layer. Okay, so since sporopollenin cannot be degraded by anything, pollen grains, okay, pollen grains can retain their shape. Pollen grains can retain their shape for a very long time, right? And they make up excellent fossils. They make up excellent fossils because they retain their shape and size for a very long period of time, millions of years, right? So pollen grains act as very good fossils because of the presence of sporopollenin. Okay, so an assertion on reasoning based question can be asked on this, right? So they can give you an assertion, pollen grains are well preserved as microfossils. They can give you a reason. Okay, they can give you a reason. Okay, exine is made up of sporopollenin, and then they can ask you A, B, C, D, which one of them is correct. So remember that. Why are pollen grains excellent fossils? Because of the presence of sporopollenin in the exine, which cannot be degraded by any enzyme, Okay, it is fatty in nature. It is fatty in nature, Abhishek. Okay, I mentioned in previous slide, it is fatty in nature. Okay, now in insect pollinated pollen grains, the exine is spiny as well as covered by a yellowish, viscous, sticky, oily layer called pollen kit. Just give me a minute. Okay, a yellowish, viscous, sticky, oily layer called pollen kit. So in pollen grains that are transferred by insects, right? So there are different modes of pollination, right? There is wind pollination, there is pollination by water, there is pollination by insects, there is pollination by birds, there's pollination by bats also, which come under mammals. There are names for all of them, which we'll be studying in next class, right? So the pollen grains that are transferred by insects, their exine is spiny, and they also contain a sticky, oily layer called pollen kit, so that the pollen grains can stick to the limbs and the body of the insect, so that when they move from one plant to another, they can easily transfer the pollen grains. Okay, okay. At certain places, the exine is thin or absent. They are called germ pores or germinal furrows. Okay, they are called germ pores or germinal furrows. Okay, so some of you asked a question, sir, if exine is so hard, how do they form pollen tube? Better, the pollen tube comes from germ pores. So if you look at the previous figure, you can see that there are these small holes there, right, where exine is absent. So these are known as your germ pores, and this is the place where the pollen tube comes out of. Okay, so the pollen tube does not degrade your exine and then comes out. There are certain pores present, okay, which are known as germ pores, through which the pollen grain comes out and the male gametes are transferred. ठीक है, Anushri, you want me to explain once again? Okay, देखो बेटा, कुछ नहीं है, short form में बात करते हैं. There are two layers. What are the two layers? Outer layer is exine, inner layer is intine. ठीक है, together they are known as sporoderm. Together they are known as sporoderm. Okay, together they are known as sporoderm. Okay, now exine and intine together are known as sporoderm. Intine is made of pectin and cellulose. Intine is made up of pectin and cellulose, right? Most of the cell wall of plant cell, they're made up of pectin and cellulose. Okay, so intine contains pectin and cellulose. The exine is made up of sporopollenin. The exine is made up of sporopollenin. Okay, so sporopollenin is not degraded by any enzyme. It is not affected by temperature. It is not affected by strong acid or strong alkali. You put HCl over it, you put sodium hydroxide over it, you put H2SO4 over it, it will not be affected by anything, right? That is why pollen grains form excellent fossils. Because of the presence of sporopollenin, they are not degraded easily. Okay? Now, after that, the pollen grains that are transferred by insects, their exine is spiky and contains a fatty and a sticky material called pollen kit, so that the pollen grains can easily stick to the insect. Lastly, there are certain places where the exine is absent, right? If you look at this place, if you look at this, exine is absent. If you look at this, exine is absent. If you look at this, exines are absent. So these are known as germ pores through which the pollen tube comes out, and the male gametes are transferred into the female embryo sac. Okay, I hope now it's clear to everybody. Okay, chalo, let's move forward then. Let's see. So in yesterday's class, we talked about microspore. In yesterday's class, we talked about microspore. Okay? No, Dhanush, no. Okay? So when microspore is first formed, okay, sorry about that. Let me shift to red. So when microspore is first formed, okay, it has a centrally placed nucleus embedded in the dense cytoplasm covered by plasma membrane. So this is your microspore. This is your microspore, right? It has a centrally placed nucleus and it has very dense cytoplasm. It has very dense cytoplasm. After that, what happens is it grows in size with the inflow of nutrients. So right now we are talking about microspore. Kal humne padha tha microspore. What gives rise to microspore? Yeah, what gives rise to microspore? Yesterday we studied what gives rise to microspore. Jaldi se batao. What gives rise to microspore? What gives rise to microspore? So microspore is given rise to by PMC, which is your pollen mother cell or your microspore mother cell or your microsporocyte. Okay, PMC or MMC or microsporocyte. So they give rise to your microspores. So your microspore grows in size. Once the microspore has been formed, the microspore grows in size with the inflow of nutrients. Where is this nutrient coming from? Can anybody tell me where is this nutrient coming from? It says that with the inflow of nutrients. Where is this nutrient coming from? This nutrient is coming from tapetum. If you remember, there were 4 layers. The outer 3 layer had the function of protection. The innermost layer had the function of providing nourishment. So the inflow of nutrient that comes from tapetum. Okay. Now, as a result, what happens is vacuoles develop and bring about rapid growth of pollen grain. As you can see in the next step, now there is development of the vacuole. There is development of the vacuole in the microspore. There is development of the vacuole in the microspore. Now, The vacuole pushes the pollen grain nucleus to one side near the cell wall. So as you can see that the nucleus has been shifted to one side of the cell wall due to rapid development of the vacuoles. Okay. So first what happens is, when you have a newly found microspore, the nucleus will be in the center. Then the nutrients will come in from the tapetum surrounding it, and vacuoles will develop. What will the vacuoles do? The vacuoles will push the nucleus to the side. After that, what happens is, the protoplasm then divides mitotically to form two unequal cells: small generative cell and large tube or vegetative cell. So as you can see, the division is unequal and it leads to formation of two cells. Remember, the division is mitotic in nature. The only difference is the protoplasm is not equally divided. The cytoplasm is not equally divided. So despite the fact that both the cells get same number of chromosomes, the amount of protoplasm or the cytoplasm in both these cells is different. Okay? So the small cell is known as generative cell. The large cell is known as tube or vegetative cell. So inside a pollen grain, you have two types of cells. And this is what a pollen grain is. Okay. This is how a microspore transforms into a pollen grain. The microspore develops. Okay. Initially the nucleus is in the center. The nutrients come in, the vacuoles develop, pushes the nucleus to the side. Then the nucleus divides mitotically, but the protoplasm gets divided unequally. So you have one large cell, which is known as tube or vegetative cell, and one small cell, which is known as generative cell. Is this clear to everybody? Beta, just give me a yes or no. Is this clear to everybody? Ye sabko samjha kya? Is this clear to everybody? Just give me a yes or no. Okay. Okay. So this is okay. Okay. So it seems like some people want me to explain this again. Dekho beta. First, there is a microspore. Nucleus is in the middle. Then the microspore will start developing because of the inflow of the nutrient. Okay. Because of the inflow of the nutrient, and as a result of that, what you see is you start seeing vacuoles along with nucleus. And the nucleus starts getting pushed to the side. Then the nucleus is to the side and the vacuoles take up majority of the portion of the cell. After this, the cell undergoes mitosis. After this, the microspore goes under mitosis, and after this, the microspore undergoes mitosis, and it leads to production of two cells. We know that in mitosis, one parent cell gives rise to two daughter cells. Yahan pe bhi two daughter cells aa rahe hain. The only difference here is that the cytoplasm is not equally divided. You get one smaller cell and you get one bigger cell. And this is what a pollen grain is. Each pollen grain contains two cells. Dhanush, the chromosomes are divided equally, beta. So if the chromosome number is 10 in a microspore, both of them will get 10 chromosomes. Okay? I hope this is now clear to everybody. Okay? Okay. So now I'll move forward. Okay? Okay. So the smaller cell is known as generative cell, and the bigger cell is known as tube cell. Only Dhanush, cytoplasm is not equally divided. Okay, only cytoplasm is not equally divided. Beta, Pushpa, so large vacuole is characteristic of all plant cells, right? We have studied that in 9th standard as well as 11th standard, right? Large central vacuole is property of majority of the plant cell. Okay. Okay. Why do we need two cells? Dhanush will encounter that when we'll be talking about fertilization. Then you will understand why two cells are needed. Okay. Do not worry about that. So let's move forward then. Okay. Now the tube cell has a vacuolate cytoplasm which is rich in food reserve and cell organelles. So tube cell is the bigger cell. Rachna, wait. Okay. So tube cell is the bigger cell and it is rich in food reserve and cell organelles. The tube cell is the bigger cell. Okay, I'll just write it here so that you guys do not get confused. The tube cell is the bigger cell. The smaller cell is known as generative cell. Okay, so tube cell is a bigger cell. So tube cell has a vacuolate cytoplasm. That means it contains vacuole in its cytoplasm. It is rich in food reserve and cell organelles. It is rich in food reserve and cell organelles. Okay. After that, what happens is the naked generative cell lies freely in the cytoplasm of the tube cell. That means the generative cell lies in the cytoplasm of the tube cell. The generative cell is a smaller cell. It lies in the cytoplasm of the bigger cell, which is your vegetative cell or your tube cell. Okay. Okay. Now, after that, your generative cell is spindle shaped with dense cytoplasm and your nucleus. As you can see that so this was your after division. Now after that, as you can see that the generative cell lies in the cytoplasm. So this is the cytoplasm of the tube cell. So it lies in the cytoplasm of the tube cell. It lies in the cytoplasm in the tube cell. So it's very important to remember that the vegetative cell contains vacuoles, not the generative cell. So Chetana, the generative cell does not contain any vacuole. The generative cell contains a nucleus and very dense cytoplasm. Okay. Prajwal, the second point means that the generative cell, the smaller cell, floats in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. Floats in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. As you can see, this is the cytoplasm of the bigger cell. This is the cytoplasm of the bigger cell. The generative cell is floating in it. This generative cell is floating in it. That is what we mean by that. Okay, I'll just erase that now. Okay, now there is one minor change that happens. Sanjana, I'll explain the entire process again. Let me just wrap it up, then I'll entire explain. So in some species, what happens is, in some species, the generative cell divides into two non-motile male gametes. So the generative cell is responsible for production of the gametes. Okay, so each pollen grain contains, okay, Vedant, what is your doubt? Each pollen grain contains two cells, vegetative cell, generative cell. The generative cell in the end is responsible for production of male gametes. The vegetative cell is rich in food reserve and organelle, and its job is to support the generative cell. Okay, and what happens is, in some species, okay, the generative cell divides into two male gametes even before pollination. But in most of the species, that is more than 50% of the species, the generative cell does not divide into gametes unless it has landed on the stigma or unless pollination has taken place. So that is what we mean by this. At the time of pollination, the pollen grain is either two-celled stage. The pollen grain is either in two-cell stage. Two-cell stage matlab kya? One tube cell, one generative cell. One tube cell, one generative cell. Okay? Or it can be in three-stage cell. One tube cell and two male gametes. Okay? I'll repeat the entire thing again. Once the two cells have been formed, so this is your tube cell and this is your generative cell. After that, what happens is, in some species, the generative cell transforms into or gives rise to two non-motile male gametes. So when you have a generative cell, what it will do is that it will divide into two small male gametes before pollination. In most of the species, this division, that is conversion of generative cell to your male gametes, happens after pollination. But in 40% of the species, the conversion of generative cell into male gametes happens before pollination. Okay, so the pollen grain can be released in two-cell stage. In two-cell stage, there will be one tube cell, one generative cell. In three-cell stage, it will contain one vegetative cell or tube cell and two male gametes. For example, if you look at the diagram in the previous figure, okay, let's look at the diagram in the previous figure. If you look at the diagram in the previous figure, so this is a bicellular pollen. It contains two cells. It contains a generative cell and a tube cell. but this is a tricellular pollen, because in this pollen what has happened is the generative cell has transformed into your sperm cells. The generative cell has given rise to your male gametes. The generative cell has given rise to your male gametes. Okay, so Dhanush, to answer your question, generative cell cannot live on their own. The generative cell are dependent on your vegetative cell for nourishment. Okay, okay. So now that is how it is. Okay, Vedant, I failed to understand your question. So let's just discuss it after the class. Okay, I'll unmute you, then you can ask me your question. Okay, so Chetan, you want me to repeat the last 2 points again? I'll repeat the entire thing. Okay, there is a microspore. There is a microspore. Okay, it takes in nourishment from the tapetum. It takes in nourishment from the tapetum. Okay, because of which it grows, and the nucleus gets pushed to the side. The nucleus gets pushed to the side. The nucleus divides mitotically, but the cytoplasm is not equally divided. So you see formation of, okay, so here nucleus has been pushed to the side. And here the division has taken place, but the cytoplasm is not equally divided. एक cell बड़ा है, एक cell छोटा है. Why? Because the cytoplasm was not equally divided. We know that in normally mitosis, the cytoplasm is also equally divided. But here, the cytoplasm was not equally divided. Okay. After that, what happens is the generative cell floats in the vegetative cell. Okay. Yes, Manisha, tube cell and vegetative cell are the same. Okay. The generative cell floats in the cytoplasm of the tube cell or the vegetative cell. The tube cell or the vegetative cell is rich in food reserve and cell organelle, and its function is to support the generative cell. Generative cell, the name comes from generation, because generative cell is responsible for generation of male gametes or sperms, if you really want to call them. Okay. Now, what happens is, in 60% of the species, the pollen grain is released in this form. In 60% of the species, the pollen grain is released in this form. That is, it contains 2 cells. Okay, one cell will be your tube cell, one cell will be your generative cell. One cell will be your tube cell, one cell will be your generative cell. Okay, but in 40% of the species, it will be released in 3 cells. Okay, in 40% of the species, it is released in 3 cell stage, where the generative cell divides into sperm cells. Where the generative cell divides into sperm cells even before pollination. Okay, so it produces male gametes by, if you can look here, mitosis. So generative cell gives rise to sperm cells by mitosis. Okay, is this clear to everybody? Okay. No, Chandrakanta, tube cell and generative cell are different. Tube cell and generative cells are different cells. The cytoplasm will not intermix. Okay, the only thing is generative cell floats in the cytoplasm of the tube cell. The cytoplasm do not mix. Okay, is this clear to everybody now? Done? Is this clear to everybody? Okay. Okay, so shall we move forward now? Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Vijay Lakshmi, so the last step, mitosis, is needed because male sperms have to be produced, right? Male sperms have not yet been produced. So in order to produce the male sperms, you need the last mitosis. The only difference is when it takes place. It can take place before pollination, which happens in 40% of the species, or it can take place after pollination. Okay? It's just not rare. You cannot call it rare. It happens in 40% of the species, right? Okay? Chalo. So let's move forward then. If this is clear to everybody now. Pollen grains. Couple of more things about pollen grains. So, okay. No, Dhanush. Dekho, Dhanush, meiosis has already taken place, beta. Meiosis to jab microspore produce kare the tabhi ho gaya tha. Meiosis happened during production of microspore. After that, all the division that will happen will be mitosis, right? Meiosis took place during conversion of pollen mother cell into microspore, right? So it is already haploid. Okay, so your pollen mother cell is diploid, your microspore is haploid, tube cell, vegetative cells are haploid, sperms are also haploid. Okay, after that, all the division that happen, they are all mitosis in nature. I hope, Dhanush, now your doubt is clear. Okay. Yes Ravi, obviously mitosis हो रहा है, so number of chromosomes will remain the same. ठीक है, चलो. Now next is pollen viability is the period for which pollen grains retain the ability to germinate. Okay, so for how long the pollen can germinate after being released from the plant, after being released from the plant is known as your viability of the pollen grain. Purvam, wait after the class, I'll tell you. Okay, okay, so uh, pollen viability is the period for which the pollen gland can germinate after being released from the plant, and it depends from plant to plant and on the environmental condition also. So it is highly variable and to some extent depends on prevailing temperature and humidity. If the temperature and humidity are conducive to it, then it can remain viable for long period of time. Okay, Dhanush, just stay back after the class here. Okay, because I've repeated it 3 times, just stay back after the class. I'll repeat it again. Okay, and but if the temperature and the humidity are not conducive, then it will lose its viability easily. Okay, so for example, in cereals such as rice and wheat, pollen grains lose viability within 30 minutes of their release, right? So in rice and wheat, they can lose their viability in 30 minutes of their release. Please make sure that you remember this. While in some members of Rosaceae, Leguminosae, and Solanaceae, they they maintain viability for months, right? So viability of the pollen grain kya hota hai? Viability of the pollen grain is how long after being released from the plant can they germinate. So depending on conditions as well as which plant they belong to, the viability could be in minutes or it could be in months also. In some plants you can see it in years also. So it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on a lot of factors. Okay, Madan, it depends on which plant you're talking about. It depends on which plant you're talking about. Abhishek, you want me to repeat again? देखो बेटा, ध्यान से सुनो. Simple सा. Viability क्या होता है बेटा? Viability is how long will a pollen grain is capable of germination after being released from the plant. After being released from the plant. ठीक है? अभी उसको plant से छोड़ दिया, right? If I put it tomorrow on the stigma of another plant, will it give rise to pollen tube or not? If it does, that means it's viable. If it does not, that means not viable. So for how long can it remain how long can it germinate for after being released from the plant is known as viability. Viability depends on environmental factors. It also depends on which species or which family the plant belongs to. Okay, cereals like wheat and rice, their pollen grains are viable for only 30 minutes. That means अगर तुमने 40 minutes के बाद उसके pollen grain को female gametophyte पे रखा, germination नहीं होगा. ठीक है? That is what we mean by that. While some plants can maintain it for months or years also. So अगर तुमने 1 साल के बाद भी उसको रखा female gametophyte पे, it will give rise to a pollen tube. That is what we mean by viability. ठीक है? I hope this is clear to everybody. चलो बेटा, let's move forward then. So it is possible to store pollen grains for years in liquid nitrogen minus 196 degree. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have seen liquid nitrogen. So I personally have worked with liquid nitrogen. It's awesome. Okay, but you should never put it on your hand because as it said, it's minus 196 degree, right? And if prolonged exposure to liquid nitrogen can lead to very adverse effects to your health, right? And in pollen banks for later use in plant breeding programs. So you can take the pollen grain of a plant, you can put it in liquid nitrogen, and it will stay there and it will remain viable for years, because at such low temperature all activities pause. You might have seen some space movies, right, in which scientists are in pods, right? They are in which scientists are in pods when they're traveling over long distance, right, which is known as hibernation pods, right? So what does hibernation pod does? It slows down your body activity, right, so that you can survive that long period of time, right? So similarly, you can take your pollen grain, store it in liquid nitrogen at such a low temperature, the activity completely pauses, right? The activity completely pauses of the pollen grain. When you take it out of it, then you can again breed it again, right? So the photo that I've taken here is, okay, so the photo that is not a pollen bank, okay, that is not a pollen bank. Prajwal, I'll put all these slides in the group here, you can download from there. So if you the photo that I have so Pritish, I used it because some of our samples were stored in liquid nitrogen. Some of our samples that we were working on, they were stored in liquid nitrogen, right? So I was working on certain types of bacteria, so certain samples were stored in liquid nitrogen. Anyway, So the photo that I've taken here, okay, so this is not a pollen bank. This is not a pollen bank. Okay, this is actually a seed vault. This is actually a seed vault. It is in, okay, it is in Norway. It is in Norway, right? And the important thing or the interesting thing, okay, it will not degrade Kishan. The important thing or interesting thing about the seed vault is, okay, I forgot the name. It's Scalcert something seed vault, right? That it contains seed of almost all the plants that are found on this planet. It contains seeds of almost all the plants that are present on this planet, and they're again stored in liquid nitrogen. Now, why does it contain the seeds of all the plants? So that in case if tomorrow there is an apocalypse and life on this earth has been reduced to bare minimum, we lose out plants, right? Then you can again regrow the forest. You can again replant the, you can regrow the fauna of this, flora and fauna, right? So that is why you have seeds of all the possible plants on this planet in this particular seed vault. Okay, it's in Norway. Okay, you can Google up Norway seed vault. You can read about it, right? So it's there just in case if an asteroid strikes like it did during the dinosaur time and vanishes out most of the life. You can use the seeds from this vault and you can regrow your forest. You can, if in a case, let's say a species of plant dies out, then we can use the seeds present in this vault to get those plants back. So this is a seed vault that is present in Norway. You can Google it up. Okay, seed vault Norway. It will give you much more information. Then you can look into it. Okay. Anyway, this is not a pollen bank. Confuse mat karena. This is not a pollen bank. What is the role of liquid nitrogen? Beta, liquid nitrogen provides very low temperature. Itne temperature pe everything, all the biochemical activities stop. Okay, so it helps in pausing. Zindagi pause pada jati hai. Khatam. Okay. Okay. Yes, all seeds that we have discovered, all seeds of the plant that we have discovered. Okay. Beta aisa nahi hota. So liquid nitrogen, if it starts leaking out, as soon as you open up the chamber, it starts getting converted into gas because the temperature is very high, right? So beta Vijeta, artificial insemination bahut baad mein aayega yaar, wait karo. Okay, now couple of more things. So one last thing about pollen grains. So no, there's one more thing after of pollen grains after this. So pollen grains float in air and enter respiratory tracts. So obviously pollen grains, especially of those plants, which depend on wind for pollination, right? Their pollen grains float in the air and they enter your respiratory tract. As a result of that, some individuals develop allergy to them, and it could lead to respiratory disorders like rhinitis, asthma, bronchitis, or bronchial allergy, right? So I don't know how many of you have any friends, or maybe you are one of them who has pollen allergy. I had a friend in college who had pollen allergy. Okay, so Pranav has pollen allergy. That's good to know. Okay, so Dhanush, no, seeds will not die. Seeds will not die. Seeds will not die. Okay, so the major contributor to pollen allergy is carrot grass, which is Parthenium. So somebody asked about Parthenium. Beta, aa gaya tumhara Parthenium. So one of the major contributor to pollen allergy is carrot grass, which is known as Parthenium. This is the figure of Parthenium. Remember the name Parthenium, okay? Which is also known as carrot grass, and it is a major contributor to pollen allergy. What do you mean by Congress plant, beta? Can you just explain that? So how did it enter India? It entered India as a contaminant with imported wheat, but has spread to all parts of the country. So when we started importing some varieties of wheats, so along with that it entered India, and now it is present in all parts of the India. And since this plant depends on wind for pollination, you will find its pollen grains in the wind. And if you are one of those people who has pollen allergy, and if you inhale their pollen grains, you will have, as you might end up with asthma, you might end up with rhinitis, or you might end up with bronchitis. Okay. Okay. No, beta, this is Parthenium, beta. The figure that we are showing, this is Parthenium. So what are the symptoms of pollen allergies, right? So okay, so people are saying this is known as Congress plant in Hubli. I don't know, yaar. I don't know whether what is this known as. Okay, beta, Pritish, carrot grass ka scientific name hai Parthenium. Carrot grass ka scientific name hai Parthenium. Okay. So okay, people are saying it's known as Congress plant in Hubli and Mysore. I don't know, yaar. I have no idea. Okay, tum log hi jana yaar, ye log. Okay, so what was I saying? Wait, what was I saying? Yeah, so somebody asked me what are the symptoms of allergy. Beta, so it depends. It depends on it depends on from people to people. Some people just have a cough or a sneeze, while some people start crying also, right? They like their tears start coming from their eyes, and some people end up with asthma or inflammation of the bronchiole. So it depends from people to people. Okay, okay, okay. So apparently in Karnataka it's called Congress plant. I don't know why, but okay, so be it. So last thing about pollen grains. Okay, pollen grains, especially the ones collected by bees, are being used for variety of purposes, right? So this is a photo that I've taken from Amazon, right? You can order bee pollen from Amazon. Okay, so pollen grains, especially the ones collected by bees, are used for variety of purposes. Why are they used for variety of purposes? Because they are believed to be rich in nutrients. Because they are believed to be rich in nutrients. They are taken as tablets of syrups to improve health, enhance performance of athletes, and racehorse. Okay, now enhancing performance of the athletes, that is not allowed. Okay, so that is against the law of the game. So if any athlete is found consuming this, then they are banned from the sport. But as a normal person, you can do that, but do not just start consuming them. Consult a doctor first. कल को पता लगा सर ने बोला था that it is good for your health और तुम लोग चबाने लग गए pollen bees. Do not do that. Okay. I take no guarantee. मैं पहले बता रहा हूँ, खाने मत लग जाना यार. Okay, technically you can order it from Amazon, but I don't know what are the benefits. I have never eaten bee pollen. तुम लोग भी बिना किससे पूछे ट्राई मत करना. Okay, do not try without consulting a doctor यार. कल को पता लगा एलर्जी निकला तो पड़े हो गया मेरे ऊपर आ जाए. Right? So just remember that bee pollen are used for variety of purposes as they are believed to be rich in nutrients. If you want to remember, you can remember the constituents, that is protein ka kitna level hota hai and all that. But that has rarely been asked. Then they are used to improve health, okay, and enhance performances of the athletes and racehorse. Obviously, it is costly because collecting bee pollen is not that easy. So if you order it, obviously it is going to be costly. Okay, so that was all about your pollen grain. Okay, so pollen grain सबको समझा क्या? Give me a yes or no, beta. Is the pollen grain clear to everybody? Just give me a yes or no. सबको pollen grain समझा, so that I can move to the next topic. So यहाँ तक मुझे कल करना था. I wanted to do till here tomorrow or yesterday, sorry, right? But भगवान जो चाहा वो हो गया. Okay. No Kirtan. Kirtan it is being recorded. Do not worry about that. Okay. Okay. So let's move to the next part of the chapter, which is your female gametophyte. Okay. So gynoecium represents the female component of a flower. We are already done with the male component. Now we'll talk about the female component. We are already done with the male component. Now we'll talk about the female component. Okay. The gynoecium represents the female component of a flower. What are the different components of it? Ovary के अंदर क्या होता है? Ovule के अंदर क्या होता है? How is ovule produced and all that? So that is what we'll be studying now. Okay. So let's see. Now, pistil. Okay. So a flower can contain only one carpel, which is known as monocarpellary, two carpels, bicarpellary, three carpels, tricarpellary, or many carpels, multicarpellary. This is something you guys have studied in your 11th standard also, I'm assuming, right? So if there is only one carpel, you call it monocarpal flower. If there are two carpels, bicarpal flowers. If there are three carpels, you call it tricarpal. And if there are many carpels, you call it multicarpal flower, right? Okay. Each carpel represents a megasporophyll. So they can be used interchangeably also. Now, gynoecium is apocarpous if the carpels are free. So if you look at here, the carpels are free from each other. They are not joined to each other. So they are called apocarpous. Or it can be called syncarpous also if carpels are fused. So as you can see here, the carpels are fused to one another. So they can be called syncarpous also. Okay. Again, all the things that you have studied, in your 11th standard, right? So Anushree, dekho, so people often ask how to remember all this. So at least when I was of your age, I used to solve as many problems as possible, right? So once you have read the theory properly, once you have understood everything, so what I recommend to students is solve as many problems as possible, right? Because in problems, if you get something wrong, then you remember it much better. Rather than just sitting and memorizing everything from the textbook or from the notes, right? Because if you get something wrong in the problem, then you'll remember what mistake you committed last time. So your chance of repeating it again become less. So my recommendation is once you have understood everything, once you have studied everything thoroughly, then solve as many problems as possible. Okay. Okay. So That is what is. Okay, so everything from 11th standard, just basics are refreshed. Okay, now a free unit of gynoecium is called pistil. A free unit of gynoecium is called pistil. Kishore, explain again. क्या explain करना है? ये तो 11th standard का ही था. चलो कर देता हूँ. देखो, if there is only one carpel, okay, if there is only one carpel, then you call it what? If there is only one carpel, you call it a monocarpal flower. If there are two carpels, you call it bicarpal flower. If there are three carpels, you call it tricarpal flower. If there are many carpels, you call it multicarpal flower. Okay? Now, gynoecium is apocarpous if the carpels are free. If the carpels are free. Beta Umesh same ही बात है. If the carpels are free, then if the carpels are free, then the gynoecium is called apocarpous. So this is an example of apocarpous gynoecium. If the carpels are fused, then you call it syncarpous. If the carpels are fused, then you call it syncarpous. As you can see that this is a syncarpous because the carpels are fused to one another. Okay? From your 11th standard. Okay, that's why I did not emphasize much on it, because I thought you guys would remember it from your 11th standard. Now, something from your 10th standard, right? That a pistil has three parts: stigma, style, and ovary. All of you have studied this in your 10th standard, that your carpel contains of a stigma at the top, style in the middle, and then ovary at the bottom. And within the ovary, you have what? You have ovule. Something from, again, your 10th standard. But now, as we'll move forward, obviously we'll be getting deeper into the theory part of 12th standard. So let's see. Now, stigma is the terminal receptive part of the pistil, right? If you go back to the figure, it is the terminal receptive part. This is where the pollen grains are received. That is why it's called the receptive part. Terminal means what? At the end, right? So stigma is the terminal receptive part of the carpel, which is responsible for receiving the pollen grains, which functions as landing platform of the pollen grains, right? You can think of a helicopter and a helipad. A helicopter lands on a helipad. You can think of the helipad as your stigma and the pollen grains as your helicopter, right? So the stigma is the part where the pollen grains land. The stigma is the part where the pollen grain lands. Now, stigma is also responsible for compatibility and incompatibility of pollen grains. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? For example, if you have, let's say, pistil of an apple flower, if, let's say, pollen grain of a mango falls on it, do you think there would be fertilization? There would not be fertilization, right? Because an apple carpel can only receive pollen grain from an apple flower, right? So how is that decided? That is decided by your stigma, whether it is compatible or not, right? Whether it is compatible or not, that is also decided by your stigma, because there are certain receptors, okay? There are certain chemical reactions that take place on top of stigma, which help in determining whether they are compatible or not. You can think of it as a lock and a key. Right? Each lock has only one key. So if it is compatible, the key will go into the lock, it will open it up. Same thing here. Okay. Vijay Lakshmi, what happens if it is incompatible? Beta, if it is incompatible, nothing will happen. It will remain there. Then the wind will take it away. Right? So if it is not compatible, it will be there. Okay. Now, style is elongated narrow stalk that connects the ovary with the stigma. Let's go back to the figure. So if you look at the figure, this is your elongated stalk. So style is the elongated stalk that connects your stigma to the ovary. Last point, ovary is the basal swollen part of the pistil. Ovary is the basal swollen part. Okay. So again, let's go back to the figure. Let's see, this is your swollen part and this is your ovary. Kishan, I don't understand your doubt. Could you please elaborate on it? Okay, I failed to understand your doubt. So just elaborate on it, then I'll clear up your doubt. So that was a brief introduction of pistil. Something again that you guys have studied in your 10th standard. Nothing new here, right? Okay. So Kanya, I want me to explain the second one. Beta, second one kuch nahi hai yaar. Dekho, second one kya bol raha hai? What is the second one saying? The second one says that it determines the compatibility and incompatibility of the pollen grain. As I said that each lock has only one key. तो अगर तुम दूसरा की घुसाओगे लॉक नहीं खुलेगा. Same reason, same चीज यहीं पे यार. Same species से pollen grain आया, only then fertilization will take place. If it is not from the same species, no fertilization will take place. ठीक है? Okay. So let's move forward then. Okay. So Now, if you cut open an ovary, and look from the top, this is the view of the ovaries from top. Okay, we are looking at the ovary from top, transversal section, beta. Okay, so if we cut open the ovary has an ovarian cavity with one or many chambers or locules. Right? What were the chamber in the anther known as, beta? What were the chamber in the anther known as? What were the chambers in the anther known as? What were the chambers in anther known as? Jaldi se bata do. What were the chambers in anther known as? The chambers in anther were known as theca. The chambers in anther were known as theca, right? So chamber in ovary is known as what? Chamber in ovary is known as, okay, chamber in ovary is known as locules. Chamber in ovary is known as locules. Okay, so depending on how many locules there are, the ovary can be bilocular, that is 2 locules, right? This is your first locule, this is your second locule, or trilocular, 1, 2, 3, or it could be tetralocular, 1, 2, 3, 4, or it could be pentalocular, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So depending on how many chambers there are, how many locules there are, the ovary can be bilocular, trilocular, tetralocular, or pentalocular. Okay? Simple tha. We are cutting open the ovary, looking at it from the top. Upar se dekh rahe hain. Okay? Okay. Now let's move forward. So, ध्यान से अब थोड़ा ध्यान देना. Okay? Now locules contain paracametus cushion called placenta. So locule contains placenta. If you look at it, this is placenta. This is placenta. This is placenta. We see placenta in humans also. Usse confuse mat kar lena. Okay? So locules contain paracametus cushions. Okay? So placenta is made up of parenchyma. Placenta is made up of what? Parenchyma. No dhanush. Okay? So arising from placenta are the megasporangia, commonly known as ovules. So ovule are also known as megasporangia, and as you can see, attached to the placenta are your ovules. Attached to the placenta are your ovules. Okay? An ovary may have 1 to several ovules. Examples yaad rakh lena: wheat, paddy, mango. 1 ovule per ovary. 1 ovule per ovary, or multiple ovules per ovary, or multiple ovules per ovary. ठीक है? तो इसका भी एग्जांपल याद रखना: watermelon, orchids, papaya, etc. ठीक है? So inside each locule there is a parenchyma tissue which is known as placenta. Attached to the placenta are your ovules. Attached to the placenta are your ovules, which are also known as megasporangia. Okay? They can have 1 ovule. Okay, each ovary can have 1 ovule, or they can have several ovules also. They can have several ovules also. ये सबको समझा क्या बेटा? Give me a yes or no. Is this clear to everybody? Just give me a yes or no. Is this clear to everybody? Just give me a yes or no. सबको समझा? ठीक है? Okay, चलो. Let's move forward then. Now, थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखना. Things will start leveling up. So, an angiospermic ovule is typically ovoid and bitation structure. It is ovoid. Okay, that means not exactly circular. It is ovoid and bitation structure. Now, inside each ovary, where it is attached to placenta either singly or in cluster. That means it can be attached to placenta. So if let's say this is a trilocular ovary, there can be only 1 ovule, okay, or they can be a cluster of ovule. That is what the second statement means. Okay, it can be attached to the placenta either individually or as a cluster. That is what the second statement means. Okay, now let's look at the next statement. Ovule is stalked, and the stalk is called funiculus or funicle. Okay, the ovule is stalked. As you can see that there is this stalk attached to the ovule. So this stalk is known as funicle. This stalk is known as funicle. Okay, and the point of attachment, okay, the point of attachment of the body of ovule with the funiculus is called helium. So if you look at it, helium is this. Okay, so this is the portion where the body of the ovary is joining the stalk, where the body of this stalk. Okay, so this beta, what we are looking at right now, is your ovule. What we are looking at right now is your ovule. मैंने क्या किया? I took this figure and now I am focusing on only this part. I am focusing on only this part. मैंने उसके अंदर zoom in किया. And when you zoom into that, what you'll see is, you will see this. When you zoom into that, you will see this. Okay, so ovule have a stalk. Let's say this is an ovule. So ovules have stalk. What is that stalk known as? That stalk is known as funicle. That stalk is known as funicle. The point where the ovule joins the funicle, that is this. I'll label it with a different color. So the point where the ovule joins the funicle, this point is known as your hilum. This point is known as your hilum. This is your ovule. Okay, that is what the last two statement mean. Okay, so funicle helps in, okay, funicle helps in okay, funicle helps in what happened, Purva? Okay, so funicle helps in joining the ovule to the placenta. Funicle helps in joining the ovule to the placenta. Funicle helps in joining the ovule to the placenta. That is what the function of funicle is. It helps in joining the ovule to the placenta. ठीक है, so यहाँ पे ये स्लाइड सबको क्लियर हुआ? Is this clear to everybody बेटा? Is this clear to everybody? ठीक है, that is what the last 2 point meant, that the stalk of the ovule is known as funicle. The point where the funicle and the ovule join, that is known as hilum. That is known as hilum. Okay, so stalk of the ovule is funicle. Purva. ठीक है, चलो, shall we move forward then? Okay, let's move forward then beta. Now, depending on the configuration and orientation of the body of ovule in relation to funicle, there are 6 types of ovules. So that means, what is the relationship between the body of the ovule and the stalk? Based on that, we can categorize ovules into 6 different categories. Based on that, we can categorize ovules into 6 different categories. What are 6 different categories? Okay, orthotropous or atropous. So in atropous, as you can see, the first one, the ovule and the stalk are in the same line. The ovule and the stalk in the same line. Okay, the ovule and the stalk are on the same line. So it is erect. It is completely erect. Basu, I failed to understand your question. Could you just elaborate it a bit? Now, if it is inverted, that means, as you can see, that the stalk is in this direction, but the ovule is pointing downwards. That is known as what? That is known as an antropous. That is known as an antropous ovule. So, first 2 types of ovule. Atropous ovule, where the ovule and the stalk are in the same direction. Where the ovule and the stalk are in the same direction. If they are in opposite direction, if the ovule is in opposite direction to the stalk is going upwards, but the ovule is opening downwards, then it is known as an anatropous ovule. It is known as an anatropous ovule. Okay. Next is hemitropous. So in hemitropous, it is half inverted. As you can see, adha, right? It is half inverted. It is not completely inverted. It is half inverted. So, or you can say, if the ovule is perpendicular to the stalk, then we call it hemitropous. Now, if the body of the ovule is curved, then we call it campylotropous. So as you can see here, the body of the ovule is curved. The body of the ovule is curved compared to the stalk. So this is an campylotropous ovule. But if the embryo sac is also curved, so as you can see here, the embryo sac is not curved, but here the embryo sac is also curved. If the embryo sac and body of the ovule both are curved, then you call it amphitropous. And if funicle is coiled around the ovule like a snake, if the funicle is coiled around the ovule like a snake, then you call it circinotropous. Is this clear to everybody? Just give me a yes or no. Is this clear to everybody? Classification of ovule based on relationship with funicle. Okay, so just to make it clear, this diagram is not important from the board's point of view, because this is not given in your textbook. Okay, this diagram is important from the NEET point of view. Okay, so this is what your okay, last one, Prakriti, last one. So in last one, as you can see, that the funicle is coiling around. The ovule like a snake. So that is known as circinotropous. Harish, you want me to explain again, beta? ठीक है, explain एक बार फिर से कर देता हूं बेटा, जल्दी से. So there are 6 types of ovule. based on the relationship between the ovule body and the stalk. Based on the relationship of the ovule body and the stalk. If ovule body and the stalk are in the same line, the ovule body and the stalk are in the same line, you call it orthotropous. You call it orthotropous or atropous. If the ovule is in the opposite direction to the stalk, stalk is going like this, but the ovule is going like this, then you call it anatropous. Then you call it anatropous. If the ovule is perpendicular to the stalk, if the ovule is perpendicular to the stalk, then you call it hemitropous. Then you call it hemitropous. Okay. If the body of the ovule is curved, but embryo sac is not, if body is curved but embryo sac is straight, then you call it campylotropous. Then you call it campylotropous. If the embryo is also curved along with the body, as you can see, the difference between D and E is that here the embryo sac is not curved, here the embryo sac is also curved. So if the embryo sac is curved along with the body, then you call it amphitropous. Then you call it amphitropous. And if the funicle coils around the ovule, then you call it circinotropous. Then you call it circinotropous. Okay, I hope this is clear to everybody. Okay, I hope this is clear to everybody. No, but they can ask you which one of the following is a trait of circinotropous. Then you should know. So that is how they can ask, Pritish. Okay, so let's move forward there. Now, let's talk about ovule in bit more detail. Let's talk about ovule in bit more detail. Okay, so the body of the ovule consists of mass of parenchyma cell nucellus. Okay, so inside the ovule there is parenchyma cell which is known as nucellus. What is the function of nucellus? Nucellus is the same function as tapetum. Nucellus has the same function as tapetum. They have abundant reserve food material. Okay, and located inside the nucellus is the embryo sac or female gametophyte. Okay, so as you can see, inside the nucellus there is your embryo sac, and the nucellus provides nourishment to the growing embryo sac. Okay, so nucellus is made up of parenchyma cell. It is abundantly rich in food material, and inside the nucellus is your embryo sac or the female gametophyte सबको समझा क्या बेटा? Give me a yes or no. Is this clear everybody? Just give me a yes or no. ये सबको समझा? Simple था. ठीक है? Okay. So let's move forward then. Now, so each ovule, okay, each ovule has one or two protective envelopes called integuments. If you look at it, here you have your integuments. This is your first integument. This is your second integument. Two layers of protection. So they can be either one or two. There can be either one layer of protection or two layer. And these layer of protection are known as what? These layer of protection are known as integuments. These layer of protection are known as integuments. You want me to explain the last point again, beta? Last point kya tha? Located inside the nucellus is the embryo sac of the female. Ye nucellus hai. This is your nucellus. Within the nucellus, what do you see? Within the nucellus, this is your embryo sac. So within the nucellus is your embryo sac or the female gametophyte. Okay. Okay. So let's move forward then. Okay. So each ovule has one or two protective envelopes called integuments. If it has one integument, then it is known as unitegmic ovule. Yaad rakh lena, unitegmic ovule if only one integument. Examples are higher dicots. So most of the higher dicots, they have only one protective layer, only one integument. Okay? Or they can have two integuments also, which are known as bitegmic ovule, Example are monocot and primitive dicot. So all the monocots have two layers of integuments, and primitive dicots also contain two integuments. So they are known as bitegmic ovule. Unitegmic ovule matlab kya? One integuments. Bitegmic ovule means what? Two integument. Okay? And there is actually two or three plants which contain three layers also. They're known as so they are known as tritegmic. Okay, but that is beyond the scope of this. Now, integuments encircle the nucellus except at the tip where a small opening called micropyle organized. So as you can see, there's a small opening here. Where integument is not there. That small opening is known as micropyle. That small opening is known as micropyle. And opposite to micropylar end is the chalaza. This is your chalaza. So this is your micropyle. Uske opposite is chalaza, which represents the basal part of the ovule. Which represents the basal part of the ovule. Okay, I hope this is clear to everybody. So in this slide, what have we talked about? There can be one layer of protection or two layer of protection. If there is one layer of protection, okay, then you call it unitegmic ovule. If there is two layer of integuments, then you call it bitegmic. Okay, now at the top of the ovule, okay, at the top, so at the top of the nucellus, as you can see, at the top of the nucellus, there is a small hole. At the top of the nucellus, there is, sorry about that, at the top of the nucellus there is a small hole, okay, where the integuments are not present, okay, where the integuments is not present, and this is known as your micropyle. Purvam, stalk of the ovary is known as beta style stigma ovary. Stalk of the ovary is known as stigma. Okay, okay. Basu, we will be talking about what is the significance of chalaza pole and micropolar pole soon. Do not worry about that. So, okay, the space where the integuments do not cover the nucellus is known as micropyle. Opposite to micropyle is your chalazal pole. Opposite to your micropyle is your chalazal pole. Okay, Madan, you want to explain the entire thing again? Chalo, ek baar aur sun lo beta. So, ovule can contain one layer of protection, unitegmic ovule, or two layer of protection, bitegmic ovule. What are these layer of protection known as? Integuments. At the top, there's a small hole where there is no integuments. That hole is known as your micropyle. Opposite to micropyle is your chalaza. Opposite to micropyle is your chalaza. ठीक है? चलो, जय श्री राम. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Now, okay, आगे बढ़ते हैं. Okay, बेटा helium हो गया. Helium is just the point where your funicle joins the ovule. बस खत्म. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Okay, so ovules generally differentiate a single. Let me use the other one. So ovules generally differentiate a single megaspore mother cell in the micropolar region of the nucellus. Okay, so inside the nucellus, there is a single megaspore mother cell. Inside the nucellus, so this is your nucellus, and around this there are, let's say, two layers of protection. Around this, let's say there are two layers of protection. So this is the bitegmic ovule. Okay, this is your nucellus, and these are your two integuments. These are two integuments. So within this, you will contain a single cell, which is known as megaspore mother cell. Rahul, we will talk about all that. Okay. So inside the nucellus, there is a single cell which is known as megaspore mother cell. Just like we had a pollen mother cell, which gives rise to your microspore, or a microspore mother cell. Similarly, you have a megaspore mother cell. Okay, which is responsible for ultimately the giving rise to your embryo cell. Now, the megaspore mother cell is large, containing dense cytoplasm and a prominent nucleus. Okay, so megaspore mother cell has dense cytoplasm and a prominent nucleus, and megaspore mother cell is diploid and undergoes meiotic division. Obviously, just like pollen mother cell underwent meiotic division, your megaspore mother cell will also undergo meiotic division to give rise to your gametes. ये सबको समझा क्या बेटा? Just give me a yes or no. Is this clear to everybody? First point, बेटा first point कुछ नहीं है. Within the nucellus, so this is your nucellus here. This is your nucellus. This is your integuments. So within your nucellus, there is a single cell. Within your nucellus, there is a single cell which is known as megaspore mother cell. The megaspore mother cell is diploid and will undergo meiotic division to give rise to your megaspores. ठीक है? सबको समझा? Okay, आगे बढ़ते हैं. So meiosis results in production of 4 megaspores. Meiosis results in production of 4 megaspores. Meiosis results in production of 4 megaspores. Obviously, right? This is your megaspore mother cell. This is your megaspore mother cell. So we know that in meiosis, what happens is, in meiosis, you will end up with 4 daughter cells. So what are the 4 daughter cells known as? The 4 daughter cells are known as megaspore tetrad. The 4 daughter cells are known as megaspore tetrad. The process of formation of megaspores from the megaspore mother cell is called megasporogenesis. The process of formation of megaspores from megaspore mother cell is called megasporogenesis. Okay? Usually the chalazal megaspore remains functional while the other 3 degenerate. Okay, so this is your micropylar end, right? Your small hole where the integuments were absent, so that is known as the micropylar end, while the opposite is known as chalazal end. So what happens is usually only the chalazal one remains functional while the other 3 degenerate. Okay, the other 3 degenerate, and this one, that is your chalazal microspore, megaspore, will be responsible for giving rise to your embryo sac. Okay, so your chalazal microspore will be responsible for giving rise to your embryo sac. So what is the key difference? What is the key difference? Nandita, karenge, do not sub rakho yaar, we'll do all that. So what is the key difference between megasporogenesis and microsporogenesis? What is the difference between megasporogenesis and microsporogenesis? In microsporogenesis, pollen mother cell gives rise to 4 microspores. In megasporogenesis, okay, your megaspore mother cell gives rise to 4 megaspores. But in microsporogenesis, what happens is, in microsporogenesis, all 4 microspores become pollen grains. All 4 microspores become pollen grains. But in megasporogenesis, all 4 megaspores do not become functional. Only the one present on the chalazal end. Only the one present on the chalazal end remains functional. These 3 will degenerate. These 3 will degenerate. Okay? That is one of the very important difference between megasporogenesis and microsporogenesis. I'll repeat the entire thing again. Okay? So inside the nucellus, there is a single cell known as single megaspore mother cell. Single megaspore mother cell. Okay? And it is a large cell containing dense cytoplasm and prominent nucleus. It has a prominent nucleus and contains dense cytoplasm. It is diploid. Obviously, it is diploid because all cells are diploid unless they want to form gametes. So it is diploid and undergoes meiotic division. So the megaspore mother cell, which is present on the micropylar region. Okay, so it is present slightly on top. Okay, so it is present on the micropylar end and it undergoes meiotic division. So megaspore mother cell undergoes meiotic division to give rise to a megaspore tetrad. And this process is known as megasporogenesis. Okay, this process is known as megasporogenesis. Okay, so one more thing, that the other 3 degenerate while the one present at the chalazal end. While the one present at the chalazal end remains functional. Okay, remains functional. Okay, so this is a key difference between microsporogenesis and megasporogenesis. Okay, okay, yahan tak sabko samjha kya? Okay, okay, so let's stop it here because I want to do it further, but it will take time. So I'll stop it here. Okay, just a minute, guys. Do not run away. So just give me quick feedback, then you guys can run away. Okay. So I hope that you guys like today's class. Okay. I'm going slightly slow because we need to go over stuff multiple times, right? So I hope that you guys are now understanding. I'm trying to go over stuff as many times as possible. If you guys have any doubts, I try to do my best to go over all this stuff. So I'll see you guys tomorrow on Tuesday. Okay. So I hope that you guys are enjoying the class. I hope that you're learning from the class. I hope that you guys are having fun. Thank you very much for your patience here. Okay. It's always a pleasure teaching you guys. If you have any doubts, just stay back for 5-10 minutes. Okay. Shreya, I'll be answering that tomorrow. Okay. So if you have any doubts, you can stay back. Otherwise, you guys are free to leave. Okay. So thank you very much here. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Okay, please take care everybody. Okay, bye bye.